available to us. For example, you can check it here. If you'll be writing print dir of built-ins, okay. So there is a built-in module available in Python, _built-ins. Okay, so now let's come to the input and output functions. So input and output functions are the okay. So these modules, let's have a look at it. This has come. Yeah, so these all are the list of modules which is available on my system. You can also do this and you'll be getting the modules available on your system. This huge list, you can use any one of them if you want, and then probably you, whatever is required one, you can use it. Okay, now input and output function are the built-in function like input and print function. So if you want to taking the input from the user, we have the input function. Okay, now to take the input, let's say if we have to take input anything, we can use input function here and enter a value, anything. Okay, now remember, in this case, if user will enter any value, that by default will be a string type, a comma type of a. If you'll be checking, that will become a string type. If you'll be entering a number, that will also become a string type. If you will enter a string, that will still remain string only. So apart from that, if you will be entering a float value, that will also become a string. A list value, if you will be entering, that will also become a string. That is not going to be a list. Okay, so there is a problem with input function. Not problem, you can say this is how it is defined. It converts everything into this string. And if you want the value to be converted into its core data type after taking the input, so you have the corresponding function. This eval function, it takes the input from the user, okay, into the string format, and it converts it into the respective data type. For example, if I'll be executing it, doesn't matter what input I will give. If I'll be giving an integer, it will be converting it into the integer. If I'll be giving a string, it will be converting it into the string only. Okay, so it is going to convert it into the string. If I'll be giving a list, it is going to convert it into the list only. Okay, fine. So it is the list type. So eval is a powerful function. How it works? So eval is a function which takes the expression into the string format. You can pass any expression into the string format. It will be first removing the quotation and then it will be evaluating the expression. If you will execute it, you will get 30. Okay, whereas see, there is a print function also. In that, if you will be passing this 10 plus 20 into the quotation, it will be not removing this, it will be printing it as a string object. But eval function, what it does, it removes the quotation and it prints this value after executing it or after evaluating it. So eval is going to take a expression into the string format and then it is going to evaluate that expression and then it will be giving you the result. Okay, so we take the advantage of it. Actually, what is the see, there's no problem. Let's say if you want to take the integer as a integer value as an input from the user, so you can write here enter an integer. Okay, and you can use integer function, right? You can use int function here. It will be by default converting it into the int type. Okay, but this case will not be working in all the cases or in all the data type. For example, let's say if you want to take the list from the user, you'll be writing list and list of input, enter a list. Right? If I'm going to enter a list, so what will happen in this case? 10, 20, 30, and 40. Right? So executing this will not be giving me the list into the required format. What my requirement was, I wanted to get it into this format. Okay, whereas what happened here, see, list is a function. How it works? So if you will be passing a string object to it, so every element of this string will become the element of the list, output list. Okay, so P is one element, Y is one element, T is one element, H is another element, O and N are different element. Similarly, when you have used this input function, you have entered this list, so it has, this input has converted it into the string object. Okay, now when you are passing this whole string object to the list function, it is taking every element of this string. This element is one element of list, this one is another element, 0 is another element, 2 is another element, even comma is also one element. Okay, so my requirement was not to get into this format, my requirement was to get into this format. Okay, or to get into this format. Okay, so how we can do that? So instead of using list function, we could have used eval function. That will be giving you the better way of representing this output. So we can write eval and then here we can write input and then here we'll be writing enter list. Now print list comma type of list. Execute this. If you will enter list, so what it will do, it will be passing it to a list only. It will be removing the quotation, and then it will understand, okay, so there are square bracket, it means it is a list, so it will be converting it into the list object only. Okay, so this is how you can take the input from the user. And then we have the print function. So print function prints the output on the screen, and it is a function, it returns none object. So it can be used in numerous ways. For example, if you want to print one single value, you can pass one single value, it will be printing that value. And also if you want to print the multiple values, you can pass multiple values separated by comma inside a print function. It will be printing those values by default in a same line separated by space. Okay, so there is a separator attribute inside the print function that is by default set to space. So if I'll be executing it, I'll be getting the same output. Why? Because there is a separator attribute that is set to a space character. If I'll be setting this to a colon, then it will be giving me the pair of column between the outputs. Okay, why? Because I've changed the separator attribute to the pair of columns. Okay, or else if I'll be setting it as a /t, so there'll be a tab space between every output, or I can set it to /n. /n stands for new line. So if you'll be executing it, it will be giving you the output in every line. So first it will print 10, the new line, then 20, the new line 30, the new line 40. Now let's say if we have multiple print statement like print 10, then print 20, then print 30, and print 40. Okay, execute this. By default, print, what is the print function is doing? It is printing the output and then it is going to the new line after printing. Why? Because there is the end attribute in every print statement that is by default set to /n. Okay, so I'm setting this end attribute to /n, and you'll see that by default everything is going to the new line. Okay, whatever you are printing here, this all things are going to the new line. Execute this. You are able to see that these all things are printing. Everything is getting printed to the new line. Why? Because there is the end attribute into the print function that is set to /n. Let's say if I'll be setting this to a space character, then everything will be printed into the same line separated by space. Okay, execute it, you'll be getting 10 space, 20 space, 30 space, 40. So what it did, first is printed 10 and then a space character. Okay, then it is printing 20, then a space character. So when it was printing earlier, after printing 10, automatically the cursor was moving to the new line. Okay, then it was printing 20, then cursor is again moving to new line, then printing 30 and so on. But in this case, it is not moving to the new line, it is remaining in the same line after a space character. Okay. So these two attributes you can use to format the output in the Python, separator and end attribute. Okay, and next we are going to see that how we can format a string. Okay, or string output. Okay, now what I wanted to print is I want the output to be printed in this format, that the sum of 10 and 20 is 30. Okay. So better we can do one thing is we can keep it into the quotation and then we'll be printing, we'll be getting the output. That is quite good. But what if the inputs are taken from the user? So int input, enter a number or enter first number, and again we'll be writing here let's enter second number. Okay, now I want this A and B value to be replaced here into these places and the result also to be replaced. I cannot do that because I have hard coded the inputs, right? So if I want to replace them, so I have to make it dynamic, right? So how I can make it dynamic? So there is a format. So I can use F in the beginning. Whenever you will try to print something, you just use F in the beginning, and instead of writing the hard coded values, you just write here A. You just write first the placeholders. Okay. So these all are the placeholders which you can write here and here also. Okay, and inside the placeholders, the value which you want to replace. So the sum of A and B is C, right? So we'll be writing the sum of A and B is C. So what will happen in this case is it will be replacing this A, B with the values which you are taking and C with this result. Okay, execute it. Let's say if you'll enter 100, 200, then it will be giving 100 and 200 is 300. Fine. Anything else? Any question? Fine. So this is where you can format the output string. Okay, if you have a string, whatever format you want the output in, you can format this string. Okay.